This is Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to make my happy pumpkin pie pot holder. Now just a note, if you're going to be making this as a decoration, acrylic yarns are fine. If you're going to be making this pot holder to use or put anything hot right off the stove or out of the oven on it, or if you're going to grab with it, make sure you use cotton yarn, and it's also a good idea to double the center portion if you really are going to use it as an actual pot holder. This is a free crochet pattern on my blog, and you can find that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. I'm going to be using my pot holders as decorations, so I'm going to be stitching mine out of acrylic yarn. I'm using Red Heart Super Saver medium weight number 4 yarns: orange, beige, white, pink, and black. And it doesn't take very much. The center of this doesn't even take an ounce of yarn. The pot holder measures 8 inches across, so it's not a huge one, but it's just about the right size. And again, if you're going to put hot things on this pot holder, don't use acrylic yarn. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook, and the H hook is a 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle for weaving in those ends, and then you'll also need your scissors. All right, we're going to be starting in the middle and working out. We're going to begin with a chain 5. We're going to join this chain 5 into a circle. We'll snug that down and make that little stay stitch so that our little 5 chain loop stays together. Put your hook through, pull up a loop, and chain 3. And then we're going to stitch 9 double crochets right in that chain 5 loop that we made. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and then we're going to stitch 9 more double crochets, so we have a total of 10 double crochets. And if you notice, I'm stitching right over that tail of yarn so that when we're done with our 10 double crochets, I can gently pull on it and close the hole in the center. All right, let's see how many I've stitched. Here's my chain 3, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I need to do one more. I'm going to join to the top of my chain 3 with a slip stitch. I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to turn my work over, and I'm just going to gently pull on that to close that hole. And we'll use our needle and weave that in later, but I wanted you to see how the hole is easily closed. Now for row 2, we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3, and then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in each of those 10 double crochets around. And we're going to go from having 10 double crochets to having 20. So I'm stitching 2 double crochets in each of the 10 double crochets. We'll repeat this all the way around and join to the top of our chain 3. I stitched those 20 double crochets, 2 in each of the 10 for row 2. I'm going to join to the top of my chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. Now for row 3, we're going to do the same thing that we did on row 2. We're going to stitch a double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3, and then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in each of those double crochets around. And so because we're stitching in 20 double crochets and we're stitching 2 in each, we're going to have 40 double crochets for round 3. And we're stitching it this way because this makes it lay nice and flat and not curl on us, because we don't want it, to curl up. It's not a bowl. It's just a nice flat round circle. So what I'm doing is stitching 2 double crochets in each double crochet around for a total of 40 double crochets for row 3. We'll continue this all the way around. We'll join to the top of our chain 3. I completed row 3 for 40 double crochets. I've joined to the top of my first chain 3 and chained 3. Now for row 4, I'm going to stitch a double crochet in the same stitch as my chain 3. Then I'm going to stitch 1 double crochet in the next 2 double crochets. Then in the next double crochet, I'm going to stitch 2 double crochets. And so the pattern for row 4 is 1 double crochet in the next 2 double crochets, and 2 double crochets in the next. So we're doing 2 and 2. All right, let me repeat just to make sure you understand what I'm doing. 1 double crochet in the next 2 double crochets, and then 2 double crochets in the next. 1 double crochet in the next 2 and 2 in the next. Repeat all the way around, and then we'll join to the top of our chain 3. So I've completed that 4th row. I joined to the top of my chain 3 and chained 3. All right, so now let's do our 5th row. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. We're going to double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3, and then instead of stitching 2, we're going to stitch 3 double crochets, 1 in each of the next 3. All right, now we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the next. There we go. All right, and that's the way the pattern for row 5 will work. 1 double crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then 2 double crochets in the next. And again, we'll work this all the way around till we reach back to our chain 3, and then we'll join. All right, so I finished that last row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to join to the top of my chain 3 with a slip stitch, but I'm not going to chain 3 because we're going to change colors. I'm going to cut my orange yarn and bring in my beige. Snug that down. I'm going to chain 1, And then in this first stitch, we're going to stitch 2 single crochets. 1 and 2. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to be stitching single crochets instead of double crochets. So we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in the next 4 double crochets. 1, 2, this is 3 and 4. Then we'll stitch 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And that's the way that row 6 will work. 1 single crochet in the next 4 double crochet stitches. And then 2 single crochets in the next. One, two, three, 4 single crochet stitches, 1 in each of the next 4, and then 2 single crochet stitches in the next. And we'll repeat this all the way around. We've completed row 6. We stitched 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochets, and then in the next stitch we stitched 2, working all the way around. And now we're going to join. Now you need to join to the first single crochet, not the chain 1, or you'll end up with an extra stitch. And chain 1. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to make these fun little edges that makes the pie look like the type that your mom or your grandma or maybe your great-grandma used to make. So what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet in this first stitch. We're going to skip the next stitch, and then we're going to stitch 3 double crochets in the next. Now we're going to skip the next stitch and stitch a single crochet in the next stitch. And see how that made that little curl? All right. And this is how we're going to repeat around. Skip the next, 3 double crochets in the next. Skip the next and single crochet in the next stitch. And it should curl in on you just a little bit because that's the look that we're looking for, like when your grandma pinched the edges of the pie crust, or maybe your mom. All right, whomever. Sometimes I just buy mine in the store. So skip the next, 3 double crochets in the next. Skip the next and single crochet in the next. And we're going to repeat this all the way around our pie. And we'll repeat this all the way around till we get back around to the beginning. Skip the next, 3 double crochets in the next. Skip the next and single crochet. Once you've completed your shell stitches all the way around the outside of your pie, we're going to join to that first single crochet and chain 12 chains. And this gives us our loop if we want to hang it up. Then we'll just join right in that same stitch with a slip stitch and cut our yarn. And now we can hang it up if we want it to look pretty. Now I need to take a couple minutes here and weave this in. And then I'm going to show you how to make the whipped cream. For our whipped topping, we're basically making an 8-petaled flower. So we're going to start with our slip knot and chain 3. We're going to stitch 8 single crochets in the second chain from the hook. So we'll go right in there and stitch a single crochet. There's 1, and we'll stitch 7 more, so we have a total of 8. All right, let's make sure that we have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, now we're going to join to this first single crochet with a slip stitch and chain 1. All right, so now we need to make those 8 petals. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right in this first stitch and stitch 2 double crochets. And chain 1. All right, now we'll go to the next one and slip stitch, chain 1, and stitch 2 double crochets. Chain 1. We'll go to the next one and slip stitch, chain 1, and stitch 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. And we'll do this until we have 8 petals. Chain 1, slip stitch in the next single crochet, and stitch 2 double crochets in that stitch. Okay, and now we'll repeat this 4 more times so that we have 8 petals on our whip topping flower. Once you've got your 8 petals stitched, here's our last chain 1. We're going to join to that first single crochet and tie off. Now leave yourself about 12 to 18 inches of yarn so that we can sew it onto our pie. All right. Now before we put it on the pie, I want to go ahead and weave this end in just in case that there is a hole in the center, which happens a lot of times when we do this particular method. So we'll go ahead and stitch around those first stitches that we made. There we go. And we just gently pull on that and that hole will close. Getting a little snug in there. There we go. All right, so let me just finish weaving this in. All right, let's put it on our pie. Here's our pie we've been doing together. I'm going to go ahead and thread the end of the long piece onto my needle, and then I'm going to place it right in the center of my pie. And you'll notice it's a little ripply, and that's the way we want it. That's why I crammed in there 8 petals instead of maybe 6. All right, so what I do is I go ahead and I go down through the center like that. Come up the other side, and then I just sew around the center. I do not sew the petals down. I just sew stitches around the center of it like this. And I do that first initial stitch so that it helps me make sure that my Cool Whip or my whip topping is going to stay centered in the middle of my pie while I stitch on the outer edge, I mean. All right, now once I'm happy with the way that I've sewed it on, you'll notice we can either push those up or we can lay them flat. If you're going to use this as a hot pad, you want to lay that flat. But if you're using it for decoration, you can poof that up a little bit, poofy woofy, and it looks just like Cool Whip in the center of your pie. All right, let's turn this over and go ahead and weave this in. And now our happy pie needs a face. So the eyes and the cheeks are all made exactly the same. They're the same size. And since the black yarn is really hard to see, I'm going to show you with the pink. And it's really super easy. Let's move these out of the way a little bit. All right, we're going to start with that slip knot. We're going to chain 3. And we're just going to stitch 8 single crochets in the second chain from the hook, just like we did at the beginning of the flower, or should I say whip topping. All right, let's see how many we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need one more. So we just single crochet 8 single crochets in the second chain from the hook. We join to our first single crochet and tie off, leaving a long piece of yarn so we can sew it in place. Now, again, we need to close that hole in the back. And we'll just go around those stitches that we just made. I think my needle's getting a little blunt or something because it's not wanting to go through the yarn. Better check on that, huh? All right. I just want to make sure that's closed. We don't want a hole in our little cheek or in our little eye. All right. There we go. So I've already made a cheek and 2 eyes, and I'm going to show you how to sew them on. All right, let's start with the placement of the eyes. I've already got one eye on this one, and we're going to put the other one right here. And so what I do is I just stitch around. Make sure it doesn't move on you there. There we go. The outer edge of that circle. Make sure it doesn't get put in the wrong place. You just keep looking at it. There we go. And stitch around the outside of the eye. And if you'll notice, as we stitch them, they're just a little bit 3D, and I like that. All right, so then we want to add those eyelashes. And so what I do, I look over here, see where these are, try to make them in the same spot. There we go. And we just make that little V. Now make sure when you put your stitches in that you're going in stitches and not the holes that are in between, or you'll lose your stitches in those holes. There we go. So there's our little eyelashes. Aren't those cute? And I always like to just go back in and make sure everything's going to stay put. Just make a few stitches if I have extra yarn, and I'll do this around like that. Especially if it's going to be played with or used a lot. All right, so we'll just pull that to the back and weave that in. So now our little pumpkin pie has some cute eyes. The next thing we're going to do is the mouth. I've already sewed the cheek on this side. I like to line it up under the eye, and I'm going to go ahead and line that one up and sew this on the same way we did the eye. Now the placement of the eyes and the cheeks is totally up to you. Even the whipped cream is up to you where you want to place it. There we go. All stitched in. I'll go ahead and weave that in. Let's give it another little. There we go. All right, so now the last thing we need is to add the mouth. And I like to put the cheeks on before I add the mouth. That way I can just stitch right along this line to get a nice even mouth. And I'm doing mine in black. You can use pink or red or whatever color that you want to. And what I do is I sort of bend that back a little and I go right up under that cheek to the first stitch. Leave a little bit out here for weaving in. And I'm just going to follow this line on these stitches. All right, once I've stitched across, and I like the way that it looks, I just go in the back and weave that in. So this is my Happy Pumpkin Pie pot holder crochet pattern. What a great gift to take to the hostess for Thanksgiving or any holiday party.